Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first ever virtual community resource fair. Normally, we would be together, crammed into Lansdowne High School. Things are obviously a little different as we find ourselves in this crazy year that is 2020. I am your MC, Ashley Hall. I am the program manager and camp director at the Ability Center of Virginia in Virginia Beach. And when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, I do a little stand up and improv comedy, which is why I am here as your MC tonight. We have a packed lineup, so I'm not going to waste any more time talking about myself. I'm going to get right into it. As you all know, October is Disability Awareness Month. And as a part of the celebration of our special community, the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children, the Office of Families and Community Engagement, and the Special Education Advisory Committee would like to present to you this very first ever virtual community resource fair. I just have to say that the resource fair team was so determined to touch base with the community that they have been working like crazy to make this night a possibility. And if we were together, I would say clap it up for that team. They've done an amazing job. During the evening tonight, you're going to hear from speakers. You're going to have the opportunity to win door prizes, and you're going to learn about a newly created living Padlet platform that the team has developed to house some amazing information just for our community. And I know out of everything I just said, prize stuck out the most. So how do you win a prize? It's very easy. Just send an email, enter to win virtual door prize. Just type that in your email and send that to vbseac1@gmail.com. And several times throughout the night, I will call out the name of the latest winner, and then you'll be contacted by email on how you can collect your prize. In addition to the live portion of this event tonight, the Resource Fair team developed the Padlet platform that I just mentioned. And that's a way to electronically store a lot of helpful references for you to use. This storage Padlet platform, that's a tongue twister, will be a living platform that we'll continue to add to as we receive new resources, and you'll be able to access this Padlet at any time via a link located at the bottom of this Zoom screen. In addition, most information from tonight's event will be available on that platform. Other information presented on the Padlet comes from the many vendors who have participated in our face-to-face fairs over the years, and the recording from tonight's event will also be available with closed captioning in just a few days as well. So please refer to the Padlet in the future as the team will continue to add resources there for you to find. You can find the link for that on the Virginia Beach Special Education Advisory Committee Facebook page. And throughout the night, at any time, please send any questions, concerns, or topics that you would like the CEAC to address in the future to that same email that you'd use for the raffle. That's vbseac1@gmail.com. I'm almost done. Next is the legal jargon. This information provided tonight is for reference purposes only and is not intended as individual legal, medical, or psychological advice for a student or family. Families are encouraged to contact community partners directly for more information and to consult their personal legal and medical or psychological advisors. VBCPS does not endorse, guarantee, or warrant the services of any provider. All right. Whew, that was a mouthful. Let's get right into it. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the evening. Her name is Ms. Carolyn Weems. She is on the Virginia Beach School Board and a liaison to the CEAC. Ms. Weems was first elected to the school board in 2002 and then re-elected in 2006, 2010, and 2014. Ms. Weems moved to Virginia Beach after graduating from Clemson University and has lived here for 36 years. Ms. Weems and her husband, Billy, both coached and taught for Old Dominion University before having 5 children and starting their own business. For decades, Ms. Weems has volunteered in our schools, PTAs, churches, and community organizations. She is very passionate about improving and expanding instruction and opportunities for students receiving special education and technical and career courses of study. Ms. Weems is the founder and president of Caitlin's Halo, a nonprofit focusing on helping addicts and loved ones. This was inspired after the tragic loss of their daughter, Caitlin, after she became addicted to painkillers prescribed by doctors. To educate others, Ms. Weems was instrumental in getting HB 1532 passed that mandates all schools in Virginia to offer opioid-focused education. For her advocacy, Ms. Weems was named the recipient of the 2017 FBI Director's Community Leadership Award, as well as the Virginia Beach Human Rights Award. In her spare time, Ms. Weems is co-chair of the Hampton Roads Opioid Working Group, a Sunday school teacher at Old Donation Episcopal Church, a Good News Club leader, a reading tutor, and a Cub Scout den leader. All of her children graduated from Virginia Beach Public Schools, and her granddaughter is currently attending Virginia Beach City Public Schools. Ms. Weems, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashley. Your introduction reminds me of how old I am and how long I've been around here, but it's all good. It's all good. As a school board member and the liaison between school board and the Special Education Advisory Committee, and also as a 16-year member of the CSEP board, I have been definitely an advocate for special education students, parents, and teachers. But more credibly, as a parent of a student who received special education services for 11 years, I know firsthand the importance of our community coming together on behalf of students who learn differently. School systems are responsible for providing your child with a free and appropriate education. The cornerstone of federal and state special education law is the requirement that parents and guardians become active participants in determining the services that will address the special education needs of your child. That's why tonight is so important. An effective partnership between parents, educators, and the community calls for all people involved to be fully informed, for us all to be aware of school and community resources, and that we all understand the steps taken to identify and then educate children with disabilities. This community resource fair is an annual event and one that I've enjoyed attending many times in the past. This year, it does look differently, but I'm so thankful for CSEP, for SEAC and OPEC that they moved forward to make sure that they brought this opportunity to us. Believe me, I know firsthand how difficult this season has been. The pandemic has forced us out of our comfort zones and has placed us in roles that we would have never imagined. For parents who are navigating the complexities of special education and for the students receiving specialized designed instruction, the challenges have been far greater. I'm sorry for this, but we're going to get through it. And the perfect start is tonight's resource fair. We have a robust schedule of speakers and vendors ready to share their expertise. I know this will be extremely helpful. And remember, at any time during your child's education, if you have questions or concerns, reach out to his or her teacher, the case manager, the assistant principal, a SEAC member, and Carol Blackwell, our parent support liaison. And of course, at any time you can give me a call as well. We're here and we want to help. Again, thank you to SEAC and OPEC for putting this resource fair together. And especially thank you for all the families who are Zooming in tonight. I know you will be pleased you did. Thanks again, and everyone have a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Weems. Next up, I would like to introduce Dr. Alexander to welcome our participants on behalf of Virginia Beach City Public Schools. Dr. Alexander is the Director of Family and Community Engagement at Virginia Beach City Public Schools. He has been in the educational field for more than 20 years and has instructed primary and intermediate levels. He served as an executive director of a nonprofit organization and was an adjunct professor for Johns Hopkins University, where Dr. Alexander taught medical students leadership skills and how to best communicate with the communities that they served. He works to create a collective impact on families, schools, and communities by collaborating with various stakeholders to support and promote family engagement. Dr. Alexander?
Thank you, Ashley. I always got to make sure I'm not on mute, so thank you. As Ashley said, I'm Dr. Admin Alexander. I'm the Director of the Office of Family and Community Engagement, also known as the Office of FACE within Virginia Beach City Public Schools. It is my pleasure to speak with you today about our first virtual Virginia Beach Community Resource Fair. As a Director of FACE, my goal is to lead our team toward more equitable access to resources for Virginia Beach parents and guardians, their children, and neighbors. We strive to foster beneficial partnerships and find ways to strengthen the role the community can play in supporting students and their families. We pride ourselves on building relationships with diverse groups of businesses, local agencies, and organizations to assess how their services can enhance a variety of learning experiences and fulfill community needs through authentic communication platforms like the one here right now. As I think about this resource fair and its vendors, participants, and clients, I'm reminded of and grateful for our community's resilience, patience, and determination as we all have had to adjust to a new norm in the era of COVID-19. The information provided at this fair is but a sample of the resources that are available to families and community members so they can assist our children in their journey towards becoming successful and productive citizens. Please don't hesitate to reach out to my office or any of our panelists for more information about anything you see or hear tonight. I want to thank the Office of Programs and Exceptional Children, OPEC, the Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC, and our Department of Technology, DOT, for their continued support and partnership, because it takes all of us to bring about positive change and to nurture and protect the educational environment for our students. Thank you, Ms. Hall, for allowing me to be a part of this event.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. I am next going to introduce to you Ms. Leanna Landry, who's going to discuss Virginia Beach City Public Schools services and support for our community. She is the Special Education Coordinator for the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children. Ms. Landry is a mom of 2 girls and graduate of First Colonial High School and Old Dominion University. She has worked for Virginia Beach City Public Schools for 10 years as a special education teacher assistant, special education teacher, assistant principal, and now currently in her position as special education coordinator. Ms. Landry.
Good evening. Thank you, Ashley, so much. I apologize for not sharing my video with you all. I just tried and I lost internet connection. So I'm afraid that if I have my video going, we might lose me. Mr. Din, do we have the slideshow? Awesome. So I'm here, as Ashley said, I'm a coordinator for the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to go over the services and supports that Virginia Beach Public Schools can offer our community. You can forward the next slide. This is a screenshot of the vbschools.com welcome page. I wanted to just show you where you can access information in regards to special education on our website. There are 2 ways. At that top screen, at the top tabs, you'll see parents, students, academic programs, military families, community, employment, and about us. You can click parents, which will give you a drop down, and you can go all the way to the bottom of parents, and you'll see Parent Support Information Center, which then opens up into the SEAC link and special education programs. You can also find information, it's the exact same link under academic programs, all the way to the bottom, you'll see special education programs. And when you click on special education programs, you're gonna see an overall overview of the information, of all the information from screening through IEP development. That will be helpful information for you and your students. Next slide. This is the overview that you would see when you click on that special education program. So you can see the overview and the timelines. Next slide. Supports. This is just an overview of the support that can be offered to your student. These supports can be offered first to all general education students. The first level of support is building level of supports. So if you have questions in regards to your students' performance in the school setting, the first step would be to contact the teacher and have a teacher conference about what things can be put in place to help your student.
Luca, can you help, please? I've got to carry something, friend.
Dr. Keener, I think you're unmuted. For example, the teacher could put in different practices and scaffolding through differentiation. PALS is available to students who qualify. Tutoring clubs, it really depends on the need of the student and the availability at each school building. So having that conference will be an excellent start to getting your student the help they need. We also have a PBIS team at every school. That's a positive behavioral intervention and support. And what PBIS is a data-driven decision-making framework that establishes the social culture and behavioral supports needed for a school to be effective learning environment for all students and staff. They do their work around three main goals, and that is to use expectations based on the school's values, to teach the behaviors to the children in those settings that they will experience the behaviors, and to reinforce, reteach, acknowledge, and reward students according to the display of these behaviors. And that third prong is really important if there's a student with specific challenging areas. One level of support the school could offer is check-in, check-out, which is a program for goal setting and accountability through that PBIS team. There's also the student response team. And the student response team is there to assist students with being successful in that general education classroom, and it's offered K through 12. The process begins with teacher collaboration and problem solving to provide strategies and interventions to address student strengths and weaknesses. The team can be comprised of a multidisciplinary group of individuals, and it's really based on the needs of the child. So if your child is struggling in academics, with behavioral, attendance, or it needs enrichment, the team will come together to discuss those areas and the needs of your child. It really is a positive forum for discussing the student's strengths, challenges, and then uses a systematic approach in a professional environment. The team's going to engage in analyzing data to address those needs, implementing interventions and accommodations, and then meet again to do a follow-up based on the effectiveness of those interventions. One disclaimer is the SRT is not the starting or the vehicle to guide students into special education or Section 504. It really is an overall process to help all students. However, if through this process, if the data does suggest there's a possible substantial limitation of a major life activity, a referral can be made to the 504 committee, or as well as if the data suggests there's a possible disability, the team could also refer to the special education committee. There's also the behavioral intervention specialist, also known as BIS. And the BIS can go into a special education classroom or a general education classroom without a referral and just to do an overall observation of the class in its whole. But during this visit, if the BIS does determine that there's a high needs for a certain student or group of students, the school can gain parent permission for the BIS to work with that for the BIS to work on accommodations and help for that specific student in order to be successful. And this is offered to all students in the general education classroom as well in special education classrooms. There's also Section 504, and that this ensures any eligible student with a disability receive reasonable accommodations necessary for the student to access their education, including school-related programs and activities. To the next slide, please. And the Special Education Committee. There are two ways to go about getting information for your student if you're inquiring that your student has a disability and you suspect they might need they have a disability that might have an adverse impact in the classroom and requires specially designed instruction. The two ways about going about this is the Preschool Assessment Center. And the Preschool Assessment Center provides screening, testing, and program planning for children between the ages of 2 and 5 who are suspected of having a disability. The children are screened, assessed, and determined eligible or ineligible through the Preschool Assessment Center. And if you would like more information or to put a referral in for your child ages 2 to 5, you can contact the Laskin Road Annex. Their number is 263-2800. The other way is for school-age children is to contact the home school that you're living in, the neighborhood you're zoned for, and ask for the administrator who oversees special education, and they will be able to provide you information and direction into next steps. Next slide. So for the services that Virginia Beach can provide, Virginia Beach City Public Schools provides special education services. Virginia Beach Public Schools is committed to providing free and appropriate educational opportunities for all students with disabilities. And this is for students ages 2 through 21. Services are provided in the most appropriate, least restrictive environment, and this is outlined by the student's IEP, which is the Individual Education Program. And the IEP is developed all together with a team of experts, which includes the student's parents, educators, building administrators, designees, and any other invited participants. And when appropriate, the student is also invited to participate. Virginia Beach also offers related services, and some of these related services could be physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, assistive technology, adaptive PE, and psychological services. And this is based on the educational impact of the student and the resources needed to help provide support in those areas, which is based on the IEP team's decision. There's also transition services. Virginia Beach provides transition services, transition planning to students with disabilities. There are 3 components to consider when in the planning process: the education, employment, and adult living. The student-centered planning involves family members, teachers, support staff, and community and adult agencies. The goal of transition planning is to assist the students in making a successful move from school to a meaningful and productive adult life. We also provide transportation services. An IEP team determines that the special education transportation services are required, and considerations that the team is going to discuss is, does the student require a specially equipped bus, which could include a wheelchair lift, locks, safety belts, safety seats, vests, harnesses? Does the student require specific accommodations based on their disability, such as air conditioning, temperature-controlled environment, signage inside the bus? And it also depends on the school of attendance if special education transportation is needed. So this was a quick overview of the supports and services. Depending on your student needs, obviously the resources are in the Virginia Beach City Public Schools to dive in deeper. I encourage you to contact your school administrator or the Laskin Road Annex if you would like additional information. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing these few minutes with us, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much, Miss Landry. That was very helpful. I am excited because I get to announce the very first winner of our first raffle prize, which is a $25 Amazon gift card. And that winner is, drum roll, Laura Leaphart. Laura Leaphart, you are the winner of the $25 Amazon gift card. And you can just send an email to that same email address that you used to enter, the vbseac1@gmail.com, and they'll let you know how to collect your prize. And another quick reminder about the Padlet that I mentioned at the beginning of tonight. That's a great resource for you to check out during and after the event. Another reminder, if you have to step out at any time and you're worried that you're going to miss something, the entire presentation from tonight will be recorded and will be posted with closed captioning to that Padlet within the next few days. And the link for the video will be on the Padlet, as well as the Virginia Beach SEAC Facebook page. So our next speaker is Miss Liz Adwani, and she's going to be discussing SSA 101 benefits. She is the public affairs specialist for the Social Security Administration. Liz began her career with the administration in 2002 and has worked in many Social Security offices in the country as a bilingual claims technical expert, including the Dallas, Atlanta, and Philadelphia regions. Liz has routinely assisted with special projects and also partnered with the Richmond Public Affairs Specialist Team to support SSA's mission. Liz has received numerous awards for her dedication to the agency, including a commissioner citation. She is well known for her energetic and upbeat, we can do it style, even in the most trying of circumstances. I love that kind of attitude. Miss Adwani, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, and thank you everyone for being a part of this, and I'm learning so much, and I definitely want to go ahead and hopefully provide you with some good information if you're looking into Social Security, supplemental security income benefits as well. So thank you so much, everybody. And I definitely recommend the Padlet platform. It was easy to work with, and you'll find tons of resources. I've posted tons of publications and resources on there as well, so definitely check it out. Let's just go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to provide everybody an update. So the next slide is going to be on updates during COVID-19. I understand a lot of you might want to contact the local office. We're used to just going in because every city, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, all of them have Social Security offices where you could just go into, field offices. And now we can't do that, right? Because of COVID. So the first thing I want to explain is that you are still able to call us. If you need to make an appointment, if you need to talk to us about a change that happened, if you need to mail something in, you can do everything over the phone. You can contact the local office. The link to find your local office is going to be under our website, socialsecurity.gov, which is on the bottom of this slide. And you're going to do /locator. You'll put in your zip code. Hopefully it's Virginia Beach. And you will and you can call the Virginia Beach office, or you can fax something to them, and also mail. You can mail proofs to them. Again, if you need to make an appointment, you want to file a claim, you have some questions, you can absolutely also contact the field office. Office hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 4. We're doing everything except for in person. And I have some good news for everybody on updates with what you can do online as well. But so just definitely wanted to let people know. Also, the 1-800 national line, if you are taking notes, 1-800-772-1213 if you want to call them. And again, you can contact the local office using the office locator link on our website, socialsecurity.gov/locator. Okay, so definitely wanted to provide that update. The next slide talks about the My Social Security account, which is the next slide after that is pretty much the URL. So that's how you can get your My Social Security account. Now, why would you want a My Social Security account? Well, a lot of parents might remember we used to send out these green and white statements in the mail. Every year we used to send you out your earnings history. Well, we stopped mailing those out, right? Why? Not because we went broke. It's because of identity theft. So we want you to know you can access your earnings history. Every year it gets updated. It is now housed online. Now, this is very important, especially if you have a child that's special needs, because of those family benefits, right? Children can get benefits. Disabled adult children can get benefits off of your record. And again, it's important just for you to track your earnings because of your retirement, if you ever become disabled, if something ever happens to you, especially now when everybody's getting these fraud calls as well. And we're going to go over that as well. But another reason is that if you lose your Social Security card and you're over the age of 18, so you have to be an adult, 18 years old and up, you lose your Social Security card and you just want a replacement. You just need a replacement. Maybe you found it, you need it for a job, or you need it for your real DMV ID, whatever the reason is. You can actually ask for a replacement, request it online. You don't have to call the office. You don't have to go into the office. You don't have to mail in your proofs. If you're just asking for a straight replacement, not a name change, you're over the age of 18, a U.S. citizen, and have a valid ID, you can go ahead and request it online, and it is free. So again, it is important to know that that's available. And just last week, over 1,600 people successfully were able to do that. And the weeks prior, we're looking at the same numbers. About 1,500 to 1,600 people in the state of Virginia have been successfully been able to do that. So just know that that is available. Not only can you see your statement, which is important if you started working even 18, 19, 20, doesn't matter, but you can also get your Social Security card online too if you just want a replacement card. Okay, nothing else, no changes. Now, so that's the URL for the My Social Security account. The next slide is just a quick, 5-step process. Just like anywhere else, you're gonna have to create a username and password. They will ask you some questions. And of course, if you have to have a cell phone, just like when you do banking, online banking, they send you an activation code, a security code. So just make sure, they wanna make sure it's you. So you will get that code as well. So just letting you know that what you need when you sign up for an account. Now the next slide, I'm gonna quickly run through this. tells you why you need an account. Again, like I mentioned, you can get your social security card replaced over the age of 18. That's it. You just need a replacement. You can do that online. If you file for benefits online, which you can, whether you file for it online or in person over the phone, you could still check the status of your claim online. And if you get denied, you could even appeal it online. So not only can you do your claim online, you can also check the status. So that saves you a phone call, right, to the local office, or a visit, that saves you time. And also, you don't have to worry about doing your appeal, getting paperwork, because again, it'll take you right to that portal and you could do your appeal. So it is important that you do check out our website. Also, if you need proof that you are receiving Social Security benefits or you're not receiving Social Security benefits, because maybe you're filing for something else like unemployment or any other type of, resource that you're applying for, you can receive a benefit verification letter letting you know whether you're getting benefits or not as proof. So again, that saves you a trip, okay? Also, you can see your statements online. We have 11 different calculators online. So I think it's great. I have an online account and I'm in my 30s. So just know that I track my earnings because I want to make sure my money's right? So the next slide is going to be the statement. Now, the slide after that is a copy of the statement. So this is pretty much what I'm talking about. This is what we used to send out. The next slide is important because that's your money. Okay, that's what we're here to talk about. Social Security, most people think about money. So we're talking about your retirement benefits when you retire, your family's benefits like spousal benefits, benefits for your children, disability benefits if you've worked and paid into Social Security, also survivor's benefits, and of course Medicare. If you've worked and paid into it enough, you would be eligible for Medicare. Now, if you're on Social Security disability, you can get it after 2 years. Your Medicare insurance, it'll be automatic, but if you're not on Social Security, what you've worked and what you've paid into, then you would wait until you're 65. Now, Medicaid is different, and we are going to go over the differences on that. Now, what I'm doing is I'm kind of going through all the frequently asked questions we get, and that's why I've tailored my presentation based on that. So hopefully I'm able to answer some of your questions. The slide after this is the most important part of that statement. That's your money. That's how much you've worked and what you've paid into. So that's how it's calculated when you work and pay into Social Security. Now, Social Security was passed 85 years ago, okay? And the main purpose of the Social Security Act was to track your earnings. So that's the whole purpose of the Social Security number. I know now people use it as identification and other things. And of course, we're trying to change that with, alphanumeric numbers with the DMV. It used to be your Social Security number. Now it's not. Even your Medicare card, it used to be your Social Security number. Now it's not. But it was really meant to, track your earnings, right? So people can retire with dignity. 85 years ago. Long time. It's a dynamic program because it opened up to family benefits, survivor benefits, disability benefits, SSI, supplemental security income. So it opened up to a lot of different programs over time. But the main reason we have Social Security is to track your earnings. So you want to make sure it's correct. Again, you won't get the paper anymore because of identity theft. People steal people's mail, right? But you definitely want to go ahead and make sure it's right. If there is a discrepancy, if there's anything wrong, you can call the Social Security office. If you have your W-2 from a previous year, or if you're self-employed and you see that there's a discrepancy with your net, what we're showing with self-employment net, you can definitely contact the office and you can mail in your paperwork and we will change it for you. So it's not like it's stuck, it's not set in stone. Errors happen. Your employer probably didn't provide the right information per quarter, right? Because every paycheck you get, you see Social Security is taken out. 7.65% is taken out from your check, and 7.65 is the responsibility of your employer. So things happen. So if something does go awry, that's your money. So we encourage you to track it. I know I do, and make sure everything is right. So that's very important. Now, the next slide, I'm going to address fairly quickly because I got a call even about this today, is these identity theft calls, right? You get all these people telling you your Social Security number is suspended and you're going to, they're going to go ahead and they're going to put you to jail. Just know that when you get your Social Security number is your number for life. it never gets suspended. Remember, even your survivors, even family members get benefits after you pass away. So it is important to understand that this is your number forever. So you can hang up on those calls. We encourage you to hang up on those calls, and you can report them to oig.ssa.gov/report. Again, that's oig.ssa.gov/report. So just know that you can definitely report those calls. Now, the next slide is, again, how to get your Social Security card replaced. We want you to use the My Social Security account, of course, because it's easy. If you're an adult over the age of 18, you have a valid driver's license in the state of Virginia, because most states have opened it up, and it's just a straight replacement. You can go ahead and do that. You have to be a U.S. citizen. Again, if you can't, then you will have to mail in your form and also any current documents. So we just want to highlight that, especially during the pandemic, because it has been successful online. Now, the next slide after this is the differences between the two programs that we have. So the next slide. Okay, perfect. Is the difference between supplemental security Social Security disability insurance versus supplemental security income. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the acronyms, right? People use these acronyms, unfortunately, interchangeably, and it causes a lot of confusion. So that's why I'm just going to go over this very quickly. If you get a Social Security statement, that means you've worked and paid into Social Security, the green and white statement. So it's an insurance, right? The more you put in, the more you get. So if you notice, it says Social Security Disability Insurance, which is coming out of your FICA, Federal Insurance Contribution Act, which is your Social Security tax. That's what FICA stands for. So again, 7.65 comes out of your check and 7.65 comes out of your employer matches it. And if you're self-employed, you just got to pay it all, right? But Social Security Disability Insurance are payments that come from the Social Security Trust Fund and are based on a person's earnings, versus supplemental security income are payments that come from a person's from the Treasury Fund, not the Social Security Trust Fund. Okay, so it is based on need, because SSI payments are not based on a person's earnings. Children can get supplemental security income, and even babies can get it, right? Anybody over the age of 18 who hasn't even worked, they can get it. Or if you're 65 and not necessarily disabled, but just low income, you can also get supplemental security income. Now, the next two comparisons says Social Security Disability Act is an insurance that workers earn by paying Social Security or FICA taxes, right? Supplemental security income is a needs-based public assistance program that does not require a person to have a work history. Like I said, a child can get it based on their parents' income, if they're low income, or even once they turn 18, we no longer look at parents' income. So a lot of times people file at 18, right? For supplemental security income. Now, the third comparison, Social Security Disability Insurance pays benefits to disabled individuals who are unable to work regardless of their income and resources. So again, unemployment during this pandemic, we know the unemployment numbers went up, right? We had a lot of people that lost their jobs. Were they working with a disability but didn't take Social Security yet because they were trying to work? Absolutely. Did unemployment affect Social Security disability insurance? No, because it's not based on need, right? You can have another check, you can have VA, you can have another source of income and still get still get Social Security disability. But if you're working, there's a limit to how much you can make, right? So if you get a statement and you are eligible for a disability payment, the limit in 2020, if you're trying to still work, is $1,260 per month gross, before taxes, before anything is cut. But let's say you have other checks coming in, that's fine. We're not going to count that against you. Whereas with supplemental security income, will unemployment affect it? Absolutely, because it pays disabled individuals who are unable to work and have limited income and resources. So assets, income, all of that makes a difference. And then the last comparison for Social Security disability insurance are benefits for workers and for adults disabled since childhood. Now I want to highlight this versus benefits for children and adults in financial need, must have limited income and resources. So let's say you have a child under the age of 18, has a condition, but you file for SSI and you get denied because of your income, right? Because they're under 18. Now that that child is 18 years old, now that you're child is 18 years old, you can apply for supplemental security income because we're not going to be looking at your income or your resources or any of parent stuff, right? Now, if the child doesn't live with a parent, we do not consider that other individual's income. We're just looking at that person and what income that child might have. But if they're over the age of 18, you know, they're not looking at your income anymore, right? So then you file for supplemental security income, right? You want to do that because let's say in the future you retire, right? Now you're 62, you're ready to retire. You have a child that's now 40, right? Because they were getting benefits since they were 18. They're still receiving an SSI check as an adult. So let's say you retire for your benefits. We ask you, do you have any minor children, dependent children? You'll say no because you're thinking under the age of 18. Now with dependent children, if you have a child that was declared disabled before the age of 22 and is still receiving a check, which this child, if you have a child that filed at 18 and they're still receiving a check, you can claim that child as a disabled adult child and they would get that family benefit, they would get benefits off of that family benefit. So that's why you want to check out your statement, because even after you pass away, they'll still get survivor benefits, right? So, and that's a big relief because most people worry what's going to happen to my child after I pass away, right? So that's helpful because if you've worked and paid into it enough, that's an insurance, right? That they'll get something off of your record as well. So just wanted to point that out real quick. Now the next slide talks about supplemental security income, right? Because that's what most people are thinking about when children are turning 18. SSI, as I mentioned, is a federal program that provides monthly payments to people who have limited income and resources. People who are 65 or older, they can get it if they're limited income or resources, as well as those of any age, including children who have a condition. So if you're under age 65, you have to have a condition. If you're 65 and you're just limited income and resources, but U.S. citizen, you can go ahead and apply and do the financial screening. Now, the next slide after this just lets you know about the requirements. So again, what are we looking at? We're looking at your income. Again, we're looking at your assets, your resources, what your age, right? And then if you have a disability. Now, this has to be a permanent condition. It can't, like when you're thinking short-term and long-term, this has to be long-term, okay? So it has to be a condition that's expected to last for more than a year. So that means that, you know, as long as you know it's gonna be a condition that's going to last for a while, you could definitely go ahead and pursue that application, right? The next slide. Now, it says there are different rules for children on the bottom of the previous slide. And that means for children who are under 18, we're looking at IEPs, right? Even if you're 18 and still in school, we're going to be looking at IEPs. We're going to be looking at school records because when we're thinking about an adult, we're thinking working. Can this person work when they're doing that evaluation? But if it's a child, obviously they're going to be looking at school and doctor's records from the pediatrician, things like that. So, again, we're going to be looking at income. Income is money you receive, monthly income, right? Your wages, Social Security benefits, pensions, unemployment. Resources or assets, right? Your bank accounts, your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and then of course where you live. Now with Social Security, you could move to Mexico, you know, enjoy your time there and still receive a Social Security check because you worked and paid into it. With supplemental security income, because it's based on need, if you leave the country, you cannot get a check, especially if you're out for more than 30 days. That's the cutoff. So just remember, it can't go to the Bahamas or a non-U.S. territory and still receive an SSI check, okay? Now, the next slide after this is the definition of social disability. As I mentioned, a person who cannot work due to a severe medical condition, so think long-term, and is expected to last for more than a year. Every year, there's a limit to how much you can make, substantial gainful activity, SGA, and in 2020, that limit is $1,260 a month if you're working. So as long as you're working less than $1,260 per month before taxes, before anything is cut, you should be good. Now, the next slide tells you how to apply. And that's important. So this is the link. If you want to call us and do it over the phone, of course, you're welcome to. We could make you an appointment. Call any of our offices. If Virginia Beach is your office, you can call them. Again, ssa.gov/locator. Put in your zip code. You can call. The numbers are right there. Even if it says it's closed, that just means in person. But you can still call us. We can make you an appointment. No problem. However, you can also do it online. I recommend you do it online because you have time, You get an appointment 2 months later and you have an hour to squeeze everything in. You do it online, you can save it. You'll get a re-entry number. You can go in. You could take a month just to do your application, then submit it. The more information we have, the more better the chance you'll get approved. 50% of cases get denied, absolutely, because of lack of information. People feel rushed. So that's why it's important that you do try to do it online if you can. Take your time, you know, because again, you want to get all the information in. And again, the link to that is socialsecurity.gov/disability, or you can give us a call. The national line, which is 1-800-772-1213, or you can use the locator. Now, the next slide is just a quick reminder that with supplemental security income, because it's based on need, you're looking at reporting responsibilities too, right? You have 10 days to report any and all changes. So again, remember that you'll have to do that as well on a regular basis. Now, if you're receiving SSI and right now you're worried that you can't go into the office, again, that's okay. You can call us. We'll make arrangements over the phone. We are also extending deadlines due to COVID. So if something was due, we'll work with you. So just know that we're completely compassionate about what's going on and we are here to help. Okay, truly we are here. The checks did not stop. We're still working. The next slide is a quick, just letting you know that if your child is 18, never filed before, you can do it online, not a problem. You don't have to give us a call and make an appointment. You can you can use the link, ssa.gov/disability, and you're gonna apply like you're applying for Social Security disability, what you worked and what you paid into. But then what's gonna happen is it's gonna ask you, are you interested in filing for supplemental security income? That's where you say yes. And that's where the financial questions will come in. The financial screening part will come in. You'll still do the medical questions as well. So that's a little bit easier. If you, and again, you're always welcome to make the appointment too, if that seems a bit much. But again, you could take your time when you're doing that. Now, the next slide is just reminding you the differences between Medicaid and Medicare. Because again, these terms are also used interchangeably. So remember, Medicaid, a lot of people that receive supplemental security income, SSI, they'll get Medicaid through the state. Medicare is through Social Security, right? So if you're 65 or older, or if you're on Social Security disability after 24 months of being on it, you can get on Medicare automatically, or if you got diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease or kidney dialysis, you can get on Medicare. But if you're on supplemental security income, because it's based on need, so is Medicaid through social services. So again, Medicaid is state benefit, it's a state health insurance program for people with limited income and resources, whereas Medicare is a federal health insurance program for people 65 or older. If they're on Social Security disability for 24 months, which is 2 years, they'll get it, diagnosed with ALS or going through end-stage renal disease with a dialysis. You can get that immediately. And again, in many states, Medicaid is automatic with SSI eligibility. So this helps a lot of children get it as well, right? So just remember that. I wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. And last but not least, the last slide is about the representative payee. Now, most people will have to have someone else that they trust, you know, that will take care of the money for them. We prefer it be a parent, you know. We used to do account reporting with parents as well. We stopped doing that every year, but if it's a non-parent, if it's somebody like a friend or a relative, we still we have checks and balances, and we want to still know how this money is used. So we take the representative payee job very seriously. We do a background check, a criminal background check on anybody filing. So even if it's a parent, we will do a criminal background check on you. And again, it is important to know that when a person files for benefits now, at the initial level, we ask them, who do you want, at the initial application, who are you wanting to be your payee? And they can pick 3 people. And again, they have to trust them. And again, in the future, if something changes, they can change that too. So they're not locked into just picking the 3 that they picked beforehand. And again, if they're a minor child, of course, they're going to need someone to be their payee, like a parent, so that they can get their checks cashed, right? So that's important as well. So definitely wanted to touch these points with you, because these are frequently asked questions during with supplemental security income benefits. And I thank you for your time. I think I Got it. And the next slide just lets you, it's a fun slide, and it just lets you know about different things that we've done and different community events I go to. And again, you can contact me if you have any general questions, anything specific, you will have to call the local office, and there's plenty of material in on their virtual website. So definitely check that out. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Liz, thank you so much. You had so much information to cover in a short amount of time, and you just did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
But it was a lot of information. So if you're watching and you're like, oh, I think I missed that slide, or oh, I wish I could have asked Liz a question, anything at all, you can email that vbseac1@gmail.com email address, and we will make sure that those questions get answered for you. Speaking of the email address, that email address is the one that you have been entering to win our raffle prizes. And it is my honor to announce that the winner of the second $25 Amazon gift card is Teresa Kaminsky. Congratulations, you have just won that Amazon gift card. Please send an email to that same address, the vbseac1@gmail.com, and you will be given information on how to collect your prize. I believe I still have one more to give away, so if you haven't already entered, please send enter to win virtual door prize to the vbseac1@gmail.com. I think if I say it a few more times, I'm not even going to have to read the email address. I think I've almost got it. Another reminder, the Padlet that we keep mentioning, I know that Ms. Dodie McGuire has put the link for that in the chat of this Zoom. Please check that out, again, during, after the event for additional resources. And within a few days, tonight's entire presentation will be uploaded with closed captioning, so you can go back and look at anything that you feel like you need to. Our next speaker for the night is Dr. Janice Keener, Assistant Professor of Clinical Pediatrics, Director of Psychological and Assessment Services in Development Pediatrics at CHKD. Dr. Keener attained her doctorate degree from Pepperdine University in California and completed an internship at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She also completed an APA accredited fellowship at the Children's Hospital of Orange County. She has extensive training in the assessment of autism spectrum disorders and obtained her research reliability in the administration of the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, second edition, from the Center for Autism and the Developing Brain in 2014. Her research and clinical interests include pediatric health psychology, early childhood assessment, consultation and liaison, and autism spectrum disorder. Her clinical interests also include behavioral interventions and sleep disorders. Dr. Keener is certified in the treatment of Tourette disorder from the Tourette Syndrome Behavioral Therapy Institute program. She is also bilingual and provides assessment and psychotherapy in Spanish and English. It is my pleasure to bring Dr. Janice Keener to our floor. Hi, Dr. Keener.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing well.
We're gonna try video and see how it goes.
Well, so far it looks great, and I love the Minnie Mouse ears behind you are adorable.
Yes, love Disney.
So I actually have just a few questions for you that were sent to us from parents. And the first one is, what are some signs that it's time to ask my pediatrician for help?
Okay, great. That's a question we get a lot in our clinic. And everyone is taking their kiddos for all their well child visits. And at that 18-month visit is the first time they'll get the MCHAT, for example, which is a questionnaire that looks at autism symptoms, but it also looks at other developmental concerns. So if your kiddo is not talking like they should, they're not babbling, they're not using words by that point, they're not using their index finger to point out objects of interest to them, or trying to get you to socialize with them, that's when we start seeing some of those developmental concerns. And that's the time to tell your pediatrician, hey, can you refer us for speech evaluation, occupational therapy evaluation, or a physical therapy evaluation, and then a referral to us.
Okay, thank you. The second question, you kind of touched on it. The question was, my child isn't talking yet, should I ask for help? So maybe just a little more information. At what age should I be worried and should I seek some help?
So, by the time your kiddo's about 9 months old, we really want to start seeing those mama, dada, baba, those kind of word approximations starting to form. Even before then, we like to start seeing some babbling, vowel consonant combinations, things of that nature. Now, fast forward to the 18-month appointment, we really want to start seeing, brief phrases, want more, me go, let's eat, things like that. So if you're not seeing a lot of, or hearing rather, a lot of those words and sounds and desires for, food, play, more of something, that's when the alarm bells should start going off.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Keener. And the last question that I have for you is what resources are there for young children with developmental concerns?
So in this area, we're really, really lucky. We have some really great resources. And just to back up, I'm from California, hence my Disney obsession. And we had in Regional Center, we had lots of really good early intervention services. So when I moved here, I was like, what do we have in Virginia Beach or in the Hampton Roads area? And I quickly learned about the Tidewater Autism Society, which is a wonderful resource. Even if your kiddo doesn't have autism, they can really put you in contact with lots of other folks that can help you. And then also PTSI is a great parent resource that you can access virtually. They have all sorts of different one-on-one seminars they do, same as the Tidewater Autism Society. Those are all fantastic resources. And I wanted to mention my co-presenter for tonight is Corey Yates. She is an occupational therapist at CHKD. And she is presenting on sensory integration in the classroom. Now her talk, to give her due time, is probably closer to an hour, hour and a half. So we thought it would be great to put her presentation on the Padlet, which I think you mentioned earlier, the link, and it'll be available as soon as this conference is over and folks can go on there. And I highly encourage you to look at her presentation because she mentions how to manage different sensory integration challenges that kids can face from preschool all the way through high school and beyond. And it's not just for autism. Kiddos who have attentional difficulties or anxiety or depression, and of course autism, will all face or show some sort of a sensory integration deficit. And it's really helpful to meet with the teachers and collaborate on tips and tricks on how to manage those behaviors. So I highly encourage folks to get on that Padlet and look at those resources.
Thank you, Dr. Keener. And we actually, believe it or not, are running very ahead, which is, I almost didn't want to say it out loud.
I noticed, by the way, so I was like, oh my gosh, they're ready for me. I better sit down.
I don't want to jinx it, and then I end up putting us way behind schedule later, but we do have extra time to play with. So is there anything that you'd like to talk about or share that you didn't because of what we thought was going to be a big time?
Sure. I mean, I could talk for hours on this topic, so I'm going to try to narrow it down. I think it's really important as a parents, you know your kids better than anyone. I can't tell you how many kids come into clinic who are like 12 and 13, and they'll tell me, we always knew something was wrong, but we just couldn't get a referral. And they keep kind of I hear this story over and over again. And I'll ask them, when did you first start having concerns? And they'll say, as young as 12 months, as young as 14 months. And research really does support that for any developmental disorder, early intervention is key. In Virginia Beach and the Hampton Roads in general, we have early intervention that comes into your home up until the kiddo's 3 years old. And then they will help you transition to preschool. Like Leanna was talking about earlier, there's a Virginia Beach Annex preschool program they can go into, or maybe they just need a little bit of accommodation. But parents, listen to your gut. You are your kid's biggest advocate. So sometimes some of us need to hear that just a little bit more and say, please, I know something is not quite right with my kiddo. So always listen to your gut. That's probably my biggest takeaway for parents. And maybe nothing ends up being wrong, or maybe they just need a little bit of support with speech, or they're a little hyperactive or things like that. We want to make sure we get you guys help early. Sorry, I'm seeing a question. I'm not really good at managing chat and talking. Let me try. First step to take as a parent, mention to your pediatrician you have concerns. Pediatricians can point you to early intervention services. Again, going back to that in-home model. They do OT, PT, speech, and they also have developmentalists, which are kind of like teachers that come into the home, and they help coach parents on how to get kids to attend to tasks sitting at a table, how to, learn self-help skills, things like that. So I would say that would be my first step. Since you're seeing the pediatrician, it seems like constantly when the kids are little, use them as your guide for those early therapeutic requests. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Dr. Keener. And okay, if we have another question.
I'm seeing it. So for our clinic at CHKD, our wait to see one of our medical providers is about 6 to 9 months. And then for one of the psychologists, it's also about 6 to 9 months. So what we encourage parents to do is you can start the therapy before you come see us. If your pediatrician identifies a speech delay, go ahead and start getting speech. It can be, at Centera, at CHKD, anywhere in the community. And then when you come, by the time the kiddo comes to see us, we can say, okay, they've been in speech for 6 months. We're not seeing a lot of progress, or we're seeing a ton of progress, or whatever. We never want parents to wait to start anything until they see us. Definitely start everything that you can before. So we have a new patient questionnaire that the pediatricians will give families to fill out for our particular clinic. And that just serves to give us a really good history, when they walked, when they talked, when they played. We really care a lot about kids' play. That's their job, right? To play. Isn't that fun? We used to be that way too. And with that questionnaire, it kind of helps hone in our interview. So by the time you come to see us, we know your history a lot better.
Very nice, thank you. And another question has come in, was asked, who in the school should a parent tell that they are seeing something with their child? Should they go to the teacher, administration?
I always encourage parents to approach the teacher, ask them, have you noticed anything? We're seeing this at home. Are you seeing this in the classroom? Sometimes kids only show behavior challenges at home or vice versa. And then it's always within your purview as a parent to request an IEP or request a study team evaluation. But you always want to connect first with the teacher. They're the one that's seeing your child, virtual or in person, right? Throughout the day, many, many hours. So I always like to touch point with the teacher and say, hey, what are you seeing? In fact, for all of our evaluations, we always ask for parent and caregiver questionnaire, be it a teacher, daycare, what have you, because it's really helpful to have everyone who's laying eyes on the kiddo report back to you and see what they're saying. Kids behave differently in different environments. What is the one question you always get from parents? Oh my gosh, I have a few, but let me see if I can narrow it down. What will my child's future look like? I think if I'm being sincere, that's the question I get the most often and the hardest one for me to answer. Because as much as I'd like to predict the future, I can't predict the future. But what we can do is get your kid into services to give them the best possible chance we can. The wait and see approach, I always tell parents, I'm not a fan of that. Let's get you help now. And I would rather say we got you help and you're doing a lot better than, oh my gosh, you're 14 and now we have, dyslexia, or we have autism or ADHD or what have you, and you didn't have the resources to support you through the school system and at home and things like that. Hopefully that answered that question.
You did very well. I think,
How early is too early? Well, I mean, if I'm truthful, I do the Bailey in the NICU, but that's for kids who are born premature. We've had kids as young as 6 to 9 months come in for developmental concerns. And at that point, we don't do IQ tests, of course, but we look at expressive language, meaning we're looking at babbling, we're looking at eye contact and requests for social interaction. We look at receptive skills. If a child hasn't had a recent hearing test and they're having a hard time hearing you, maybe it's time to circle back around and get a updated hearing test. We look at problem solving. It's amazing what little kids can do when you give them a puzzle and just watch them figure out, the circle goes here, the triangle goes here, and just kind of watch their little brains go. And then we look at fine and gross motor. So are they picking up things using their small fingers, or are they still using the kind of a whole hand to grasp things? Are they crawling? Are they getting all those muscles, the muscle memory built? How are they walking? So we look at things from a very young age. So it really just depends on what the presenting question is in order to get a referral. But I always talk to your pediatrician and bring up any concern you have. They've heard it all, believe me. Could go on forever, just want to make sure. Oh, okay, I will stop talking. That was my cue to stop.
No, you did. That was fantastic. And I'm gonna ask you one question, because I feel like I know you professionally very well now.
You did a great job with my intro, by the way. I meant to tell you. Sorry. Thank you.
But I want to know what your favorite Disney movie is.
Oh, that's a really tough one. Okay, so I love Coco because I'm Latin, so I love that piece. Love Frozen, but my favorite character is actually Alice in Wonderland, which she's not a lot of people's go-to, but she's my favorite. I love the Mad Hatter saying we're all mad here. I just think that definitely can apply to all of us, especially in 2020. So he makes me really happy.
Absolutely. Oh, great answer. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you for having me.
For being on the fly and willing to talk a little bit more with us. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. I will be on, but I will have my camera muted, folks.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Just another quick reminder about the email, the VBSE. Oh man, I thought I had it memorized, guys. VBSEAC1@gmail.com. You still have time to enter to win the third and final $25 Amazon gift card that I will be announcing soon. And your next speaker is Miss Tracy Lee. She is the Family Engagement Specialist / Special Projects Coordinator in the Department of Special Education and Student Services at the Virginia Department of Education. In her current role, Ms. Lee provides leadership and technical assistance to parent resource centers throughout the Commonwealth and trains both parents and school divisions in parental rights, dispute resolution, and best practices in collaboration through the special education process. She is also managing a grant project through the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities regarding critical decision points for families of students with disabilities. She has been an elementary school teacher, preschool director, and the family resource coordinator for Colonial Heights Public Schools. Mrs. Lee has co-authored 2 best-selling parenting books, 1, 2, 3 Magic for Kids. You wrote 1, 2, 3 Magic?
No, I co-authored 1, 2, 3 Magic for Kids. Yeah, not the creator.
Okay.
I'm just a lowly co-author.
I'm not even done. I just got excited. It has appeared on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox affiliates nationwide, discussing parenting and education-related issues. Additionally, she was the 2019 recipient of Virginia's Governor's Honor Award in the category of Personal and Professional Excellence, which is the highest possible honor for an employee of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I wish that you could hear the applause. Welcome to the floor, Ms. Tracy Lee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me this evening. Let me see if we can get, okay, there's my PowerPoint. Thank you. This is just the introductory stuff. I am the Family Engagement Specialist and Special Projects Coordinator for Special Education and Student Services specifically at the Virginia Department of Education. Next slide, please. This is the link to the procedural safeguards document, and that is also in the Padlet that you all have been talking about so much this evening. So you don't have to, copy this down or anything like that. You have that link in the Padlet. Parental rights in special education is a really, really big topic, and the comprehensive list of your rights is in that procedural safeguards document that you as a parent of a child with disabilities receive at every IEP meeting, eligibility meeting, and manifestation determination meeting. So the link to that on our website is there. Tonight, we're just gonna hit the high points because we don't have a lot of time. So we're gonna talk about some of the big ones and some that can tend to be a little bit more confusing for people. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the list. Again, I just want to say one more time, this list is not all-inclusive. This is just a few of the rights that you have as the parent of a child with a disability. Your first right is that we're going to talk about tonight is you have the right to advocate for your child without fear of retaliation. That's retaliation against your child, but it's also retaliation against you. And a lot of times parents will ask me, well, how could a school division possibly retaliate against me? Some of us actually have had the experience where we have worked in a school division where our child has an IEP, which sometimes can put us in the odd position of having to actively advocate, sometimes aggressively advocate for our child with a disability with and against people who sign our paychecks. And so that can be kind of a difficult place for a parent to be in. If you're a teacher or you're an employee of a school system where you're having to advocate for your child with a disability. So it's really important for you to understand that you have that right. You do not lose your rights because you are an employee of the school division. No one can retaliate against you or your child because you're advocating for your child with a disability. Number two, you have the right to advance notice and invitation of all meetings. And when we talk about all meetings within this procedural safeguards document, we're talking about the big named meetings under the IDEA. Those are eligibility meetings, IEP meetings, and manifestation determination meetings. Just so that you'll know what those meetings are, eligibility meeting, that's the meeting that you go to where it's determined whether or not your child is eligible for special education. And then those meetings are held every 3 years. IEP meetings are the meetings that are held at least once a year, sometimes more often, to determine the plan that the school division and the parent, the IEP team, is going to put in place to educate a child. Manifestation determination meetings happen when a child needs to go through a disciplinary process, and we need to determine whether or not the behavior that was exhibited is a manifestation of that child's disability. If it's determined in a manifestation determination meeting that the child's behavior was a manifestation of their disability, there are certain rules that are in place for how that child is disciplined. So those are the big 3 meetings that we're talking about. In the state of Virginia, more than 2 people is considered a meeting. So here's an example of a meeting that you would not maybe have the right to advance notice or invitation of. Let's say that your child's IEP has a reading goal in it. So your child's reading teacher meets with 2 other reading teachers after school to discuss instructional strategies. So that's a meeting under Virginia code. That's 3 people, so that's a meeting, but it's not one of those big 3 that you would have a right to advance notice of or invitation to. Third on this list, you have the right to have a meeting at a mutually agreed upon date, time, and location. Mutually agreed upon is not a school division saying we only have IEP meetings on Tuesday afternoons. On the flip side of that, mutually agreed upon is also not a parent saying I can only meet on Saturdays at 10:30 in the morning. Okay, the school division has to make a good faith effort to have a meeting with you at a mutually agreed upon date, time, and location, which basically means they cannot just give you one date and time and say, well, this is it. If you can't make it, that's too bad. Location is something that we can play with, and I think since COVID-19, since the pandemic started, we've all found that location can be played with quite a bit. We can use FaceTime, we can use Zoom. Sometimes we have to meet outside of a building. There have been situations where sometimes a parent, for whatever reason, maybe they are not allowed near a school building. And so they have to meet somewhere where there aren't children present. So you can meet in a courthouse. It doesn't have to be in the school building, but you do have a right to have a meeting at a mutually agreed upon date, time, and location. You have the right to audio record meetings all of the time. 100% of the time you can audio record a meeting. You do not have to tell anybody else that you are audio recording that meeting. I, as a parent, I have kids who either have had or do have IEPs, and my position is that I am always going to let the school division know if I am going to audio record the meeting. I just feel like part of our job as a family member of a child with a disability is to maintain that collaborative working relationship. And I just feel like secretly recording people doesn't really go a long way toward doing that. However, having said that, you are not required to do so. Now, if you do audio record a meeting and you do not let the school division know that you are recording it, and they maybe they think that you recorded it and they want to know, they can subpoena that recording and then you would have to hand it over. Okay, but you do have the right to audio record meetings 100% of the time. You have the right to request to video record meetings. So what does that mean? Every school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia has the right to have a written policy in place on whether or not they allow video recordings of meetings and under what circumstances. So if your school division has a written policy that says we never allow video recording, then you're done. That's it. You can request, but they're going to deny it, and that they're within their rights to do so. You might request a video record, and their written policy says we allow video recording under these specific circumstances. And if you fit under those circumstances, then you can video record. So if you would like to video record, what I would recommend is that you ask the school division. If they say yes, fine. If they say no, ask to see the written policy. If they have a written policy, you must follow it. If they do not have a written policy, then you are allowed to video record. Okay, but if they are allowed to have a written policy in place that says either we never allow it, we always allow it, or we allow it under these circumstances. You have the right as a parent of a child with a disability to discuss your concerns and input. And when I say you have a right to discuss your concerns and input, I don't mean in the last 45 seconds of the meeting when everybody's packing up and getting ready to go. What I would do as a parent of a child with a disability, at the beginning of the meeting, I would walk in there knowing, okay, I have about 10 or 15 minutes worth of stuff, worth of my input and my concerns that I need to discuss. So I, as the parent, am going to put that out there on the front end of the meeting. I'm going to say, okay, FYI, before we get started, I have 10 or 15 minutes of stuff I need to talk about. We can do it now, we can do it in the middle, or we can do it at the end. But I need us as a team to make sure that we leave that 10 to 15 minutes in order to discuss my concerns and input, because that is important. The school, they are the experts on instruction, but you are the expert on your child, and you have the right to discuss your input and your concerns. You have the right to bring and have reviewed any type of documentation that you want. You can bring reports from doctors. You can bring reports from outside psychologists. You can bring your astrologer's report if you want to. It does not matter. You have the right to bring and have reviewed any type of documentation to your eligibility, IEP, and manifestation determination meetings. That doesn't necessarily mean that that documentation is going to drive a decision. However, you do have the right to bring it and have it meaningfully reviewed, anything that you want. And that brings us to the last one that we're going to talk about tonight. You have the right to bring other individuals and have them assist you during meetings. You can bring anyone you want to a meeting. There have been instances that I've heard of in the past where a school division might say something like, well, we don't believe that this person has enough knowledge of the child in order to be part of this meeting. That is not allowed. You get to decide who you are going to bring to the meeting. Now, a couple of points there that I want to bring up. While you have the right to bring other individuals and have them assist you during meetings, I think that it's important to understand what the unintended consequences of our actions might be in some cases. So let's talk about lawyers for a second. Let's say you want to bring your attorney to the meeting. You absolutely have the right to bring your attorney to the meeting, and you do not have to let them know that you're doing so. But the reality of the situation is this. If you bring your attorney to the meeting, and you have not let the school know ahead of time that you're going to do that so that they can have their attorney present, case law tells us that the meeting is supposed to go forth, regardless of whether they knew you were bringing your attorney or not. But I can guarantee you that not every principal, oh, my wreath fell down, my goodness. Okay, that was bad timing. Okay, so if you bring your lawyer to the meeting and they do not know, every principal in this nation has not gotten word that that is the case, okay? So you're gonna bring your lawyer, the principal's gonna say, we're not having this meeting until my lawyer tells me that we have to have this meeting. They're gonna have to call the school board office, find the attorney's number, the school board people are gonna have to find your attorney, the attorney's gonna call them back, gonna call the principal back. By this time, you've paid an attorney to drive across town and sit in an office for an hour or two waiting to find out whether a meeting is going to happen. For most of us, money is a concern, and so that's something that we need to consider. The other thing that you want to think about is if you bring several people to a meeting, maybe you bring an advocate and an attorney and your next door neighbor and your spouse and your Aunt Sue. Schools usually have meeting spaces set up that are pretty small. They know how many people they're going to have, and they count on 1 or 2 people on the family side usually. And so if you come in with 5 people, the first 15 or 20 minutes of your child's IEP meeting is going to be spent trying to find space that can accommodate you. Teachers can only be there for a certain amount of time. They have to get back to classes. They have substitutes they have to relieve. If I am going to my child's IEP meeting and I know that I have 1 hour for this meeting, or 90 minutes, or however long has been set up for this meeting, I do not want the first 15 or 20 minutes to be spent trying to find space to accommodate our meeting. Okay, so if you are going to bring a lawyer, I would say just for the sake of trying to maintain that collaborative relationship and for the sake of your own pocketbook, I would let them know ahead of time that you're going to do that. And if you're going to bring several people, it might be a good idea for you to let them know that ahead of time so that they can have space to accommodate you. Having said that, you are not required to do that. You can bring anybody you want to the meeting, and you do not have to let the school system know ahead of time. Okay? All right, next slide, please. Okay, so I already told you that the procedural safeguards document is in the Padlet. This is my contact information. It's my email address, and this is my office phone number. We at the VDOE are not, or we're still not in our offices, but I do check my messages several times a day. The fastest way to reach me is always through email. I always have my email open. So if you have any questions that you've thought of during this presentation, or you have any questions that come up later, you are welcome to email me. You're welcome to call me, and we can set up a time to talk, and we can get your questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Lee. That was very informative. Again, she mentioned she had her email address up. If you missed it and it jumped off the screen, remember to visit that Padlet that we keep mentioning, because all of the resources from tonight will be there, and the entire presentation from tonight will be uploaded within a few days with closed captioning. I'm going to take this time to remind you again that if you haven't already signed up, or excuse me, entered to win our next raffle prize, Christmas is coming. A $25 Amazon gift card could be very useful. So please send an email over to the vbseac1@gmail.com for your chance to win. I'll be announcing that a little bit later in the evening. And we're still running ahead. We are about 30 minutes ahead right now. So if you were concerned that you weren't going to be able to stay to the end, please hang with us if you can, because it looks like we're going to get you out of here a little bit earlier than planned. Our next speakers are two. It is my pleasure to introduce Christine Drescher and Sue Burke. They're going to be speaking about IEP development and progress, and our first up, I'm going to talk to you about Christine Drescher, Special Education Coordinator, Office of Programs for Exceptional Children. Ms. Drescher started her teaching career in Florida and has been with Virginia Beach City Public Schools since 1991. She worked as a special education classroom teacher for 20 years before coming to the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children as an instructional specialist. Ms. Drescher moved into the role of Special Education Coordinator in 2014. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Education, majoring in Special Education, and a Master of Education from the University of Florida with a Postmaster's Certificate in Educational Leadership from the George Washington University. And Ms. Sue Burke, also Special Education Coordinator at the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children. Ms. Burke currently serves as a Special Education Coordinator with Virginia Beach City Public Schools. She began her career in education as a special education teacher at Plaza Middle School in Virginia Beach, and then joined the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children as an instructional specialist. Later, Ms. Burke earned a Postmaster Certificate in Educational Leadership and Administration from the George Washington University, located in Washington, D.C. Ms. Burke then earned an MS in Education with a Special Education endorsement from Old Dominion University. Finally, she earned a BBA with a Human Resources concentration from Adelphi University, located in New York. Ms. Drescher, Ms. Burke, the floor belongs to you.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me just fine. Mr. Din is going to put up our PowerPoint. It's our hope tonight that we inform parents, adult students with disabilities, and members of their community on IEP development and on how we report goal progress. Next slide. So this all starts with a free, appropriate public education. A well-developed IEP supports the federal mandate that each student with an IEP receives a free, appropriate public education. That is well known as FAPE. So Andrew F. is the Supreme Court case that upheld the previous Rowley versus Board of Education case. But it went further by clarifying that special education programming should be reasonably calculated to enable a child to receive educational benefit. It should be appropriately ambitious in light of the student's circumstances, and it should afford the opportunity to meet challenging goals and objectives. Next slide, thank you. So what is a standards-based individual education program? An IEP is the vehicle through which a free, appropriate public education is provided. A standards-based IEP describes a process in which the IEP team has incorporated state content standards in its development. That does not mean that the SOLs are used as goals in the IEP though, but the goals are related to content standards. The IEP is directly linked to and framed by Virginia's Course Content Standards of Learning, the SOLs, for the grade in which the student is or will be enrolled. To ensure that children with disabilities are held to high expectations and have meaningful access to state academic content standards, all special education students are required to have a standards-based IEP. For the student whose IEP team determines that he or she should take an alternate assessment based on Virginia's alternate academic achievement standards, the team must develop annual goals and short-term objectives based on the aligned standards of learning, which we call the ASOLs. So a standards-based IEP defines programming that will promote access to grade-level general or aligned curriculum standards. It includes goals that target skills needed to access the curriculum and/or the educational environment. And it includes services that document the specially designed instruction that's needed to demonstrate progress and attain mastery of the targeted skills. So a standards-based IEP requires alignment among the parts of the IEP to include the present levels, the annual goals, the accommodations and services, state and division-wide assessments, and the least restrictive environment. Next slide, thank you. So the standards-based IEP outlines a comprehensive and cohesive program based on the student's strengths and needs, which drives the rest of the IEP. The IEP should review and document why the student was found eligible. The standards-based IEP should incorporate baseline data gathered from multiple sources, such as eligibility reports, state, district, or classroom-based assessments, progress reports, and report card grades. Input from the parents absolutely is necessary. Input from the students, teachers that work with the student, and related service providers, all to identify present levels, provide the foundation for the goal development, and a baseline from which that progress is measured. The standards-based IEP should articulate what the student should know and be able to do. Accommodations level the playing field and support access to the curriculum for the student. Goals are the academic, functional, and behavioral skills that the student needs based on the data that is in that present level. And if there is an IEP goal, there should be a corresponding IEP service, because progress towards goal mastery requires specially designed instruction within the least restrictive environment. Next slide. I'm so glad I got to follow Ms. Lee, because parent input is key. And I just think that her presentation leads right into ours very nicely. Research has consistently shown that family engagement in a child's education leads to better educational outcomes. That is, I pulled that from the critical decision points that is on VDOE's website, and we'll provide you a link to that. And I believe when I went to that training, Ms. Lee was the presenter. It was very informative. So the parent must be provided an opportunity to participate in meetings concerning a child's special education programming and the provision of FAPE. The parent's input and concerns must be included within the IEP. And in Virginia, parental consent is required to implement services or make any changes to those services in the IEP. Next slide. Transition to adulthood is a portion of the IEP that students get when they are a little bit older. Transition to adulthood is the ultimate goal of every IEP and must be incorporated in the IEP during the year the student turns 14. The transition portion of the IEP includes diploma status, measurable post-secondary goals based upon age-appropriate transition assessments that are given yearly. These are related to training, to education, to employment, and where appropriate, independent living skills. Transition services include coordinated activities and a course of study that is needed to assist the child in reaching these post-secondary goals. Transition shall be based on an individual student's needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, and interests. That's very important to make sure that those are included annually within the IEP once the student has reached 14. And students should be afforded an opportunity for agency linkage by the age of 16. Next slide. IEP alignment is very important, and this flow chart, we thought it would be something that would be good for you to reference if you needed it going into an IEP meeting, and it shows the alignment of the IEP components, and it can be used as kind of a planning tool in developing a cohesive IEP. The strengths and needs sections of the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, or the PLAF, as we often call it, make up the heart of the IEP and drive the remaining parts of that IEP. The strengths can relate to the post-secondary transition goals that are proposed and are reviewed annually. The needs and the effect of the disability sections inform the IEP team what accommodations are necessary and which goals need to be addressed through the services that are provided. The LRE, or the least restrictive environment, determines the setting in which those services are delivered. And there should be a clear connection among all of those things. Next slide. So let's start with the PLAF. This is what I call the heart of the IEP, the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, the PLAF. It is more commonly called the PLAF and should create a picture of your child as a learner when you read it and how they access their education. It is a statement about the child's present levels. It includes how the child's disability affects his involvement and progress in the general curriculum. And for preschool children, it's how the disability affects the child's participation in grade and age-appropriate activities. The PLAF shall be written in objective and measurable terms to the extent possible. Test scores, if appropriate, shall be self-explanatory, or an explanation should be included so that when you're reading it, you understand what it is telling you. And the present level of performance shall directly relate to the other components of the IEP. Next slide.
So this is Sue. So the information in the present level of academic achievement and functional performance informs the development of the IEP goals. And these goals are what the student individual educational needs are to enable him or her to be involved in and progress in the general or aligned curriculum, and also to meet other educational needs as appropriate. New slide. The goals should be ambitious, providing high expectations for the individual student. As previously stated, they're related to the information in the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, and are written to address academic and/or functional needs of the student. They're measurable and must include a criteria for mastery, and they're also instructionally relevant and support participation and progress in the general or aligned curriculum. IEP accommodations change how students access information and demonstrate learning. They offer a way for students to demonstrate what they have learned and may involve a change or adjustment in instruction to ensure the student has equal access to the curriculum and the opportunity to be successful. So when you hear accommodations, the word access should come to mind. What is needed to access the curriculum and the educational environment? Special education services. So the IEP will include special education services, which is your child's specially designed instruction. and as needed related services, which would also include special transportation if needed. The services page in the IEPs in Virginia Beach also includes accommodations, and as I just said, that would be necessary for the student to access learning opportunities. For each service that you see in your child's IEP, that service would include the frequency of the service, the amount, the location, which would be either the general education and/or the special education environment, and also the duration, which is typically through the end of the IEP review year. The services and supports in the IEP help your student access the academic curriculum and also the educational environment. The IEP also includes your child's participation in division-wide and Virginia's state accountability system to include standards of learning assessments or the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program, which we also refer to as the VAP. If a student is being considered to participate in the VAP, in order to take this alternate assessment, your child must meet specific Virginia Department of Education participation criteria. And that criteria would be reviewed at the IEP meeting, and that would be something that you would also participate in and give consent to if you chose or do not consent to. But that would criteria would be reviewed in the IEP meeting in accordance with the Virginia Department of Education requirements. There's a certain allowable accommodations on state accountability assessments, but only accommodations included in your child's IEP may be selected. So in other words, an accommodation cannot just be included for a state assessment. It has to be an accommodation that your child needs all year long in the educational environment. And the least restrictive environment, very important. You'll also hear this referred to, because we use a lot of acronyms in special education, as the LRE. So the least restrictive environment means that children with disabilities, your child, is to be educated with children without disabilities, their non-disabled peers, to the maximum extent appropriate. And the IEP team must consider a continuum of placements so that your child will have an appropriate program. The continuum may include, and this is from least restrictive to most restrictive, general education class within the your child's home school, special education class, special education schools, which could be private or residential, home-based instruction, which is usually a behavioral consideration, homebound instruction, which is based on certification by a licensed physician or clinical psychologist, and then instruction in hospitals and institutions, including state facilities. So again, the least restrictive environment for your child to participate as much as possible with children without disabilities, with peers, I should say, without disabilities, to the maximum extent appropriate, would be your child's least restrictive environment and must be considered as part of the IEP. And progress reports. So once in your child's IEP, if you choose to consent, then the school division needs to report progress on IEP goals. So you would receive periodic reports on the progress that your child is making towards meeting the annual IEP goals, and that would be concurrent with report cards, because the Virginia Department of Education regulations states that progress for students with disability must be reported at least as often as parents are informed of the progress of their children without disabilities. So that starts with knowing that whenever your child or other students get report cards, that your child will be getting an IEP goal progress report. So currently, Virginia Beach City Public Schools reports progress quarterly, and that would be 4 times per year for elementary school students and 4 times per term, which is also, I consider, a semester, in the secondary 4x4 schedule. And that's new this year for the school system. In addition to your child receiving an IEP progress report at report card time, if your child receives an insufficient progress on his or her IEP goals, or is not making adequate progress within the general or aligned curriculum, the IEP team will convene to review your child's instructional needs and programming. As Christine mentioned, we included some resources here. The Virginia Department of Education has an amazing section for parents. One of the documents is the Parent's Guide to Special Education, and Christine had a little purple kind of front cover image of that in one of her slides. The Virginia Procedural Safeguards Notice, you should receive that. We do practice providing that to parent at all IEP and eligibility meetings. If you did want additional copies of your procedural safeguards notice, your family's special education rights, you can, in addition to contacting the school, Carol Blackwell, which is, as you know, with her here tonight, is the Parent Support and Information Center representative. She can not only assist you in obtaining additional copies, but can also answer any questions that you have about your educational rights. The critical decision points for families is, Christine also referred to that, and that's an excellent document that we use, as well as the Parent's Guide in our department. And then we also included a link for the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. So as Christine said, agency linkage is so important. For any disability, there's a myriad of services that this department provides, not only while the student is still in school, but also after leaving high school in many areas. So that would be something to that the school can explain and give you we call it DARS application, invite DARS representatives, but also just wanted to give you that information because that's a critical resource for parents. So I know that this is a really quick kind of overview on IEPs and progress reporting. So we hope that it was informative and appreciate your time in allowing us this time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Drescher and Ms. Burke. If anyone is watching and you feel like you missed something, or you want clarification on something, or you have a question that you feel like wasn't covered, please feel free to email that vbseac1@gmail.com with any questions, concerns, or comments. You also still have time to enter to win that third $25 Amazon gift card. Send an email to that same address, vbseac1@gmail.com. We have just a few more speakers, so I will be announcing the winner in just a little bit. Also, a reminder for any information. You're getting a lot of information and a lot of information in a short amount of time. So don't panic. If you feel like you missed something, we've been mentioning the Padlet all night, and Dodie McGuire has been putting that link in the chat section of this Zoom. So save that link, copy it, put it in your browser. You can visit that now and certainly visit it within a few days, and you will be able to rewatch this entire presentation in closed captioning. Now, I am very excited to introduce our next speaker because I know this next speaker in person. She is one of the kindest individuals I have ever met. I love her dearly. It is Mrs. Nicole Miller. She's the Chapter Operations Manager at Autism Society of Tidewater, Virginia. Mrs. Miller is the mother of 2 children and she has a 4th grader in general education and a 7th grade exceptional learner with autism and ADHD in the LEAD program at Chesapeake Public Schools. While wearing her mom hat, she is also the chapter operations manager for the Autism Society of Tidewater, Virginia. They are a local organization dedicated to improving the lives of all affected by autism spectrum disorder. Currently, Mrs. Miller runs almost 40 virtual programs a month, in addition to assisting individuals with autism and their families, as well as the community at large. As a native of the Hampton Roads area, she is dedicated to this community. Mrs. Miller is an honors graduate of Great Bridge High School and James Madison University with a degree in political science and international affairs. She is a former public policy and research analysis, government relations internship coordinator, and senior assistant to the Dean of Students at Old Dominion University while in her graduate studies. Mrs. Miller's career and life experiences have taken her down many paths, but she truly believes that a supportive and inclusive community will lead anyone to success. Mrs. Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashley. It's so good to see you. I miss you.
I miss you too.
We unfortunately don't get to share a building anymore, but we still think of you over at the Ability Center often. So thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. I am very excited to talk about inclusion. Aside from the autism piece, I remember as a young child, experiencing inclusion for myself. I was placed in several classes for individuals with learning disabilities. I had a speech impediment, and I had a very difficult time, saying certain sounds. I had a lot of speech therapy, and it was quite frustrating for me to read and to comprehend. I just had a really hard time speaking. Now nobody can, I talk all the time. But as a young learner, I remember having that fourth grade teacher really push me into the class, to the general education classroom, and make sure that I felt included. And I could tell you it changed my life. So I want to speak to that. There are teachers out there, and I would say a majority of them that feel, including all individuals with disabilities is very important. And if you have that teacher in your life that can push your student in, and they can excel, it's such a great experience. So I will tell you personally, coming from that. And then of course, my own exceptional learner, he has had multiple experiences where he's, trying to navigate, and he has found the most success being able to speak with his peers, to speak with other individuals, just trying to make sure that he's accessing the curriculum in the best way possible. So yes, he definitely has benefited from inclusion as well. So I can't say enough about inclusion being such a positive thing. So I really want to stress that, if that's an option for your learner, to reach out to your teacher, to reach out to, your case manager, to make sure that, if they could push in to the general education classroom as much as possible and include their learner in as many classes as possible. But, we want to make sure that they can, experience inclusion from the very early years up until, they leave the school system. And then they'll learn to experience it in the workplace. And that's really the big test, is doing it in the workplace. We have a big focus here, at the Autism Society on inclusion in the workforce. There's so many benefits to including individuals on the spectrum in the workforce, and in all disabilities. They bring so many different talents. There's so much diversity, and to include them in the workforce. So, what somebody can do, the other person next to you can probably figure it out for you if you get stuck. It's certainly exciting to make sure that they, they have that diversity of thought. So, and Ashley, I'm sure you would agree. It's a
Yes,
huge thing.
absolutely. Sorry, I had to rush to unmute myself.
That's okay. And I apologize. I don't have a formal presentation on inclusion. I would be happy to take any questions anyone has. I see in the comments that there's a great segment on 60 Minutes about employing adults with autism. So from 60 Minutes, so I'll have to check that out. So we are also trying to work with Microsoft and their autism hiring program to connect them with our autistic adults to bring those two resources together. But in the classroom, I know, having gone to multiple IEP meetings, it's, we always try to push in. There has been cases where that has made the biggest difference in his learning, but there have been cases where inclusion wasn't always a possibility because of some deficits, and we've had to push out. So, we try to push in as much as possible, but sometimes it's not as easy as we'd like it to be. So I would say when you're advocating for your child, to integrate their talents. We just decided to, update his IEP this past, I guess like last week. And we had him fill out the 1-pager, which is from the I'm Determined program. And it's very helpful. We talked about his strengths and his weaknesses and what he needs help with. And it was very beneficial to the team. And how he can advocate for himself and how he can talk to his other students. We also learned that when he was on his Zooms and when he was on his Schoology, that he wasn't also able to see the comments from all his classmates and only his lead class. And so I went to the IT department and asked, is there any way to switch that? So when he is in his general education class, he can see the comments from all of his classmates and not just from his lead classmates, which is only like 4 or 5 kids. So that was a big, especially during COVID, having that option to, expand inclusion in the form of Schoology. So because he wanted to see what his other friends were talking about, especially when he found something very challenging or when he found something really easy, and he wanted to share how excited he was to do whatever they were also doing. So we definitely want to make sure, we extend every opportunity, whether it's virtually or in person. I would say, for my experience as an advocate for my particular child and my husband, because I did have to advocate for him at ODU, trying to make sure that he had access to disability services. It was, trying to find what was the best way to include him in all of his classes, and also being able to make sure he knew how to ask for help. I think that's one of the biggest challenges children and grown-ups too face, is being able to ask for assistance. Sometimes there's a bit of shame in asking for help. People feel a certain way that, oh, well, I just can't ask that. I don't want to be called out if I'm in the inclusion class. I don't want to think, oh, there's that kid that needs help. I know my husband felt that way, and I felt that way when I was in certain classes. You don't want to call attention to yourself, but finding the best way to advocate for your child and them having the best way to advocate for themselves in those inclusive opportunities is time well spent. If it's the 1-pager from the I'm Determined project, or maybe it's just a sit-down chat where you can talk, and maybe it's a facilitated meeting with the teacher. Oh, these are good ways to do it. I know with Schoology and being online, putting comments in the chat box or raising your hand, may not be always the best opportunities. Maybe you can have that opportunity to talk with the teacher and say, can I unmute myself if, you know, at the end of the class and ask a question, or at the beginning, like what are the rules and what are the best ways I can do that without interrupting instruction. And sometimes that has to be facilitated by a parent, but it's always good when it can be done by a different individual as well. And I'm trying to scan the comments in the chat box at the same time. What can parents do to help their child integrate into an inclusive classroom? At what point do you think the child is ready to go into the inclusion classroom? Make sure the question first. So I would say, sorry, Dodie, I'm trying to read your questions. So I would say that the best way to find if they are ready for an inclusive class is, you know, are they on or at near, you know, first you need to ask your child what they feel about it. Do they feel like they're ready? Are they comfortable with in a larger setting? Because if you have a child who's only been in a small classroom setting, you know, it's very difficult to you know, go from that small setting to the big one if they've not had any exposure at all. So doing it one class at a time, especially in middle school, I've noticed, you know, if you can, giving them access to full inclusion in every class, if they've gone from self-contained, is not going to be successful. Most likely, you would want to do it in a gradual way and make sure that they feel comfortable and that they're able to advocate for themselves. Maybe the teacher assistant is in there with them to guide them as well. So those are some good ways to push in. Also, resources are the, you know, really good opportunities for inclusion: PE, library, music. You know, I think my learner had always had the experience and opportunity to be with his classmates during those opportunities. We never wanted to fully self-contain him because, you know, he likes to run and likes to, you know, talk during lunchtime. But, you know, sometimes there are opportunities where, you know, things get a little loud, and just being able to have that sensory break if he needed to, that was very helpful. So still having those accommodations in place, but resources are always good opportunities for inclusion. So I would definitely suggest, you know, doing, speaking with your learners, speaking with your teachers, speaking with your case manager, finding out what those opportunities could be, especially in the resources. And I think science and social studies where we always usually pushed in. Science seems to be a favorite topic, especially when you get to 7th grade. And I don't know, I haven't gotten through 7th grade all through it, but I remember dissecting the frog and the earthworm and all that. Anytime you can do, God bless you, can, you know, just make sure that, you know, you have that opportunity to engage with your class, and especially fun activities like that. I want to say in 7th grade, there's also a dissection of some other animal. I can't remember what it's called, but if anybody knows, let me know. So anyway, you know, I definitely want to, you know, give you those little perks or little tips to do that. So I appreciate this opportunity for you guys to let me talk a little bit about inclusion and some ways that you can advocate for that with your student. And you know, it's a brave new world here with the different learning situations we find ourselves in, but some opportunities too for our kids to experience inclusion in a very comfortable setting, especially if they're from home and they're pushing in to their general education classes, being able to talk and see with their classmates in a very comfortable situation where they're at home on their computer, being able to see their friends. They might be more willing to go into that classroom and do it live, hopefully sooner rather than later. So
Thank you.
that's all I have, Ashley.
Thank you, Nicole. Also, thank you for the bless you. The sneeze snuck up on me. I only had time to cover the sneeze or stop my video. I had to make a quick decision.
I'm so sorry. I just automatically came out of my mouth. I didn't mean to call you out. I was just like, oh, it just, I see it and I just, words
Oh,
just
I
came out
appreciate
of my
it.
mouth.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing all of those thoughts and information on inclusion. We appreciate you. If anyone has any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask Nicole, or any concerns, questions, comments about anything, please remember that email address, the vbseac1@gmail.com. And I believe Dodie has put that in the chat as well. And we have 2 more speakers. 1 more speaker until I announce the lucky guy or gal that's going to get that last Amazon gift card. But before we do that, it is my pleasure to welcome Ms. Michelle Tryon, parent, educator, and community outreach coordinator at Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters. Mrs. Tryon has worked with children and families for over 30 years and has provided programming and services in the hospital, home, and community setting. Michelle is a certified child life specialist, a certified positive discipline parent educator, a nationally recognized trainer and consultant for nurturing parenting programs, and co-author of the Nurturing Program for Parents and Their Children with Special Needs and Health Challenges. It is my pleasure to welcome Miss Michelle Tryon. Welcome. I want to just clap for all of you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So I think we're going to pull up a PowerPoint. Wonderful. Let me start my video here. Hopefully you'll be able to see me. So I do want to say, Ashley, that I agree with you that Nicole is one of the most kindest and most knowledgeable people. She's just a phenomenal person and always gets right back to you when you have any questions regarding services for families. So tonight I'm going to be talking about resilience during uncertain times and that social emotional connection. So before we even turn to the next slide, I would like you to think of words, if you can, that come to your mind when you think of 2020. So what kind of pops into your head when you think of 2020? And because we're not in person, I'm just going to say some things that have come up other times that I have done this. So if I'm working on a webinar and in the chat box, people may put some of these things. Stressful, chaotic, sad, challenging, family time, playtime, fear, unrest, frustration, advocating, trapped, rocky, up and down, care, community. So you see how some of those maybe uncomfortable feelings or words get mixed in with those fun times like family and playtime. We have the word care, we have community. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And I'm wondering what words your child would use. If you said to your child, if they can articulate this, what words would you use to describe 2020, what's been happening? And so for kids, it might be lonely, might be mad, they might be bored, could be pressured, could be worried. I think most of them would probably say more screen time, maybe more screen time than they've had in the past or been allowed to have. So we can go to the next slide, the curiosity questions. We move it just to the curiosity questions. Is anybody out there? So my slide didn't move. I don't know if someone's going to move that for me. Thank you so much. Thanks for my unknown helper there. So curiosity questions. So when I'm doing just this little brief, brief presentation here, there's not a real goal and objective to it. It's really to get us to think about interactions and especially that social emotional piece with our kids. So how do uncertain times impact us? And how do they impact our children? How can we understand their experience? So what does it look like from their point of view? As a child life specialist, my training is to really see things through the lens of the child. So as far as child development, how can we cope? And what are some tools we can use to help them continue to develop socially and emotionally despite such really overwhelming challenges that we have had in the past year? Not even year, seems like longer than that. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So regardless of abilities, every human has these three needs. They have a need for stimulation, and we can think about that as balance. So, you know, what about Zoom overload? Any of you have felt that recently? Or what about that lack of stimulation? You were sheltered at home for just a little too long. What happens when things slow down and we're not distracted every moment? So when we did have to shelter in place, we can't still go to many of the places that we might have. And so we're not distracting ourselves. We have maybe more time for quiet. And then recognition. So for every person, they want recognition. And when I think of kids, it's really about connection. So much of what Nicole was saying about inclusion is just really that every person wants to belong. I belong and I have something to contribute. So how is that challenged in the virtual world? So if they're on Zoom and they can see their friends and they can interact with them in some way, perhaps they're making that connection. But a lot of that recognition and connection is actually going to come right within your own home. So the way that you're interacting with them, the way that you're connecting with them, the way that you're allowing them to feel like I belong to this family. So I not only belong to this classroom and to this school, but I belong to this family and I have something to contribute here. And so what do they have to contribute? They want to contribute something that makes a difference. So when we think about even just wearing a mask and washing your hands, you're doing your part. So we're teaching good citizenship. At home, can they continue to do their chores and to do their schoolwork? So that's your job to get your schoolwork done. And so my job is to make sure that you get your schoolwork done. And then certainty. So if we have a basic human need, regardless of our abilities, to have certainty in life. And with kids, we think about often routines and structures. So a lot of what was their routine and their structure disappeared. It's like the rug got pulled out from under them. And so what can we do in order to help them feel more secure in their certainty? We can do some preparation. So say they are going to go back to school in person. We want to do some virtual tours. That preparation is critical. And if we can't prepare, so think about what happened in March when school just ended and they went home and they couldn't go back. It's about helping them process and making sense of what happened. That can be very helpful. So not having an opportunity to get them prepared for what's coming is really thinking about, tell me the story of what happened. Let's make sense of it together. And certainly what they do have certainty about, and I know that because there's still 66 participants on this call tonight, and there was even more earlier, that you are taking the time to watch and listen and learn so that you can do the best thing that you can for your child. So no matter what, they are assured that they have your love and your support as they're trying to navigate their way through some of these challenges. And if we can go to the next slide. So this picture here of an iceberg. So what we see above the water is the iceberg, but underneath is all of this huge piece of ice, if we're looking at the picture. The behavior is what we see, but what's driving that behavior is all of what's underneath, everything that's submerged below water. So if we think about all behavior as communication, then we can think about what is my child trying to tell me with this behavior. So one way to think of misbehavior, what we typically say is misbehavior is when they're not doing something that we think they should be doing, or they're doing something we think they shouldn't be doing. But if we think of all misbehavior as kind of a call for help, a child is overwhelmed, so they're maybe melting down, or they're having a temper tantrum, or they're even getting irritable or rolling their eyes or doing all of the things that children do. And we want them just to snap out of it and behave and be cooperative. But what's driving that behavior may be, if we keep it simple, a need for balance, a balance between work and play. How much virtual time can you spend at school without having to take a break? It may be a need for balance between movement and stillness. So can they take a brain break? Can they get up and move around a little bit and then go back to their work? It may be the need for balance between noise and quiet. So I know many days by the end of the day, I'm just exhausted from Zoom meetings. Right? And so especially if children have some sensory issues, how much is too much? And we need to make sure that they're having that balance so that they can better manage their behaviors. And then certainty, of course, what can they be certain of? And they can be certain that we are there to help them figure out how to get their needs met and how to navigate whatever it is that they're telling us with their behavior. So we redirect to get the need met for balance, recognition, or certainty, rather than thinking about how can I get this child to stop doing what they're doing, or how can I get them to do what I need them to do. We really have to be thinking about how could I make this environment or set up this environment so it would be more likely that they would choose to cooperate with a behavior that will help them be successful. And we can go to the next slide. So we've all heard of well, maybe we haven't all heard of these, but they'll be familiar when I say it. I kind of say everybody's heard of these, but just that's because that's my field. So developmental streams. We have physical, of course, how they are developing physically. We have social emotional, which is what we're really focusing on tonight. We have cognitive, which is the way they figure things out, make sense of things, their intellectual capacity. We have language, and then we have adaptive. How do they all work together? So if we're really thinking about this social emotional piece as being foundational to everything else, they really have to be in a state where they can think something through, and they can't do that if they're in emotional upset. So socially, who am I in relationship to others? And then emotionally, can I recognize and cope with a spectrum of emotions, even if they're challenging emotions like anger or sadness or grief. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So let's think about in relationship to others. So sometimes we think of these stages here, and for those of you that can see the slide, we have the infant, toddler, preschool, school age, and adolescent. And this comes from the work of Erik Erikson, of course. So many times we think of these as developmental milestones, but I really want to challenge us to think about these as ongoing developmental processes. So it's not like, we're going to say, okay, we did trust, check, we did independence and autonomy, check, let's keep moving on. So they do build on each other, but it's always going to be a need for them to have trust in their world. And that comes from their trust in you, that you are there if they are worried or scared or fearful. They always will want to express their independence in ways that help them feel powerful about who they are. Do they take initiative and try something new? Do they feel confident in comparing themselves to others? So if we want them to feel confident, we have to focus on their strengths. What is something that you love to do and that you're really good at, something you do well? And then also helping them to take risks. So one thing I think is pretty interesting is the sensations in the body for excitement feel very similar to the sensations in the body for anxiety. So if I'm excited about something that new that's going to be happening, or I'm going to try something that I've never happened before, that may be excitement. It feels a little bit anxious, but when we push through, then we actually build their coping capacity and they feel good about who they are, that they tried something that they hadn't done before. And then eventually that formation of identity. And that comes with I'm me, and that's okay. I'm okay being me, just exactly as I am. So we really want to think of these as ongoing developmental processes that are happening with kids, that social emotional capacity. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So state is as important as trait. And this comes from the positive discipline curriculum. I think Ashley mentioned that I'm a positive discipline certified facilitator. So calm, connect, and then correct or redirect. So the state that they're in when we're asking them to do something is just important as any trait that they have, or sometimes we think that they're saying no, that they won't do something, but it's really that at the moment we're asking them to do it, they just can't do it because they're not in a state to be receptive, they're not calm, they're not connected, and so then we can't correct or redirect their behavior. So are they capable of doing what we are asking them to do in the moment we are asking it? And Dan Siegel talks about, he's a neuropsychologist, he talks about HALT, H-A-L-T. Are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they tired? So if all of that is taken care of, they're in a much better place to really get their needs met in a positive way. But we want to have empathy. We're all doing the best we can in the moment. So we want to address whatever is happening in the moment and not think about, oh, this always happens, or they do this every day, or, you know, this never works well. Or we're not projecting into the future. If they don't get this now, they're never going to get it and they're doomed. So whatever's happening is happening. And how can we handle it with composure? That's the calm piece. We bring the composure to the situation. We let them borrow from our composure. So it's a calm environment. They eventually can feel connected with us, and then we can redirect or correct their behavior. Another way to think about calming, not just for us, but for them as well, is to take some deep breaths, to remember those brain breaks. Do they need to move, or do they need that quiet or stillness, that balancing piece? Positive self-talk, so we can teach it to them, but we can also use it for ourselves. So this is happening and I can handle it. I'm the parent here, I've got it. Right? So they borrow from our composure. And even if we say some things in our head that they're not hearing, it helps us stay calm so that we can have that composure. And we can also teach them what we call positive self-talk. So it's an internal dialogue that begins to happen in their heads. Things like, you're trying the best that you can. I know my granddaughter, who is 5 years old, she watches a show and it says something like, take a moment, take a pause, take a breath, and do your best. So if we can teach them little things to kind of recite when they are feeling themselves get frustrated, or they're trying to do something and it's not working quite the way they wanted, can we teach them some self-composure and some positive self-talk? We also want to validate their feelings and needs. Whatever they're doing, they're trying to get a need met. So even if it's not a positive behavior, they had an intention, a reason that they did it. So if we validate their feelings, you were feeling frustrated, so you threw the toy. That gives them permission to have the feeling. That helps them feel connected with us, and then we can redirect the behavior. And you want to get this for yourself too. So if I'm saying it's best to be in composure, and we know that as parents, it's very difficult to stay there, especially when we think of all the words that describe 2020, and all of you that are doing just a phenomenal job of school, virtual schooling and working from home. And, if your children are going back in person, getting them there and thinking about everything that needs to happen to do that. It's a tremendous amount of energy to parent well, or even to just get up and parent. So you want to reach out and get connected yourself as well. And then when we look at the correct or redirect, if it's a child who doesn't know the skill that we're asking them to do, certainly we have to redirect them to a behavior that would meet that need. And we have to teach them the skill, but they have to be in a state where they're open to learning. And that comes in the thinking part of the brain. As they get older, or as they develop more complex thinking, we can ask them, what do you think you could do instead of what you just did? So if they were frustrated and threw something, and we help them get to a state of calm, and we say, I understand you were frustrated. What could you do when you're frustrated besides throwing something? So state is as important as trait. Now, if we can have the last slide, please. So this was a very short presentation. We do have lots of webinars, free webinars that happen at CHKD, and you can access them at chkd.org/classes, register. We usually do them about once a week. We also have many parenting resources on our parent resource page. So there are some practical parenting tips there. There are some handouts that you can print out. Just lots and lots of information, links to great stuff. And then my email is here as well, michelle.tryon@chkd.org. So if you have any questions about what we do here at CHKD, certainly feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tryon. That was very engaging. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before I introduce our last speaker, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. The final winner of the $25 Amazon gift card. I'll type my email in the comments so that you can just send me a gift. I appreciate it. I'm kidding. The winner is Cassandra Ickban. If I said your name wrong, I'm so sorry. Cassandra Ickban, I-C-B-A-N. You are the lucky final winner. Please send an email to the same one you used to enter. That's the vbseac1@gmail.com. Everyone else, you can still use that email if you have any questions, concerns, comments about the evening. Also, check in the chat section. Ms. Dodie McGuire has put in the link for the Padlet where you can find tons of resources, and in a few days you'll be able to watch tonight's entire presentation with closed captioning in case you missed anything or you just want to rewatch it again. So without further ado, let me introduce our last speaker, the one, the only Miss Carol Blackwell. She is the Parent Support Liaison, the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children and Virginia Beach City Public Schools. In addition to her passion for community service, she has more than 23 years of combined experience in education as a special education teacher, college administrator, and special education administrator in the K-12 school setting. Ms. Blackwell received a BA degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her administration and supervision were earned from Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. Ms. Blackwell has lived in 11 states, traveled all over the world, and served as a volunteer in the community in various capacities. She is the recipient of numerous honors, awards, and recognitions. In addition to travel, she also enjoys music, dance, and all other forms of art. Ms. Blackwell shares that it is an honor to serve the Virginia Beach City Public Schools community and students with disabilities. Ms. Blackwell also shares that it is her honor to be the mother of her 23-year-old daughter, formerly a child with special needs and gifted twice exceptional, who is currently employed in the field of cyber security. Ms. Blackwell, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. As the Parent Support Liaison for Virginia Beach City Public Schools, I have had the pleasure of meeting and collaborating with many of you while navigating special education services in Virginia Beach. I hope you have found the topics and information shared by our expert panelists tonight useful and relevant. If you have any questions or need additional support regarding the topics discussed tonight or any other special education related needs, please contact me at your earliest convenience. The best way to reach me is via email at carol.blackwell@vbschools.com. My information is also located on our vbschools.com website under the Parents tab. Our collaborative efforts to help our students reach their fullest potential is extremely important and rewarding. Every day, I look forward to serving all Virginia Beach families, staff, outside agencies, and the community to meet the needs of our students, placing an emphasis on students with disabilities. Depending on the request for support, I collaborate with families, staff, community partners, including our military community, to provide individualized services and resources wherever needed. Our Parent Support and Information Center also offers group supports. Currently, we are located in the Laskin Road Annex at 1413 Laskin Road. In the spring, we'll be moving over near the Lynn Haven Parkway at the Plaza Annex. Contact information, hours, and resources can also be found on our vbschools.com website. For your convenience, we encourage you to call ahead for an appointment before visiting. Please contact the Parent Support and Information Center if you need information and assistance about the following: advocacy for your student or child, child find services, community resources, IEP planning, parental rights, parent support groups and networking, parent training and workshops, our preschool assessment center, our preschool programs, special education, the special education process, special education advisory committee, summer camps and activities, transitioning from school to adulthood, and any other questions you might have about special education services. It has been such an honor to work with our Special Education Advisory Committee, our Office of Family and Community Engagement, Mr. David Den from our Information and Technology Department, and all of our expert panelists. We hope that you've enjoyed this virtual community resource fair. On behalf of the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children at Virginia Beach City Public Schools, we thank all of you for your participation, your interest, and support. I also want to give a special thanks to the SEAC Fair Chair, Ms. Dodie McGuire, SEAC member Ms. Sherry Height, and our awesome massive ceremony, Ms. Ashley Hall, for all of your leadership and support for tonight's event. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and again, we thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed tonight's event.
Thank you so much, Ms. Blackwell, and thank you all for allowing me to be your MC tonight. I am a product of the Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I was a Woodstock Woodchuck, a Kempsville Brave, and a Tallwood Lion. And it has been an honor to be your MC. I just want to leave you with a few things. I want to personally just say a thank you to you, Ms. Blackwell, for your continued support for this very special community, and even more so for your dedication to making this evening a success for our audience and for our future audience that will watch later. Thank you from all of us. Thank you so much.
Well, you're so welcome. Thank you, everybody.
I know, I wish we could hear I just want to like clap. I want like a big applause for everyone. I want that moment. A couple quick reminders, and then I'll let you get to your evening. Thank you all for tuning in with us tonight. Remember that you can go to the Padlet in a few days and get the entire presentation in closed captioning, but you can visit the Padlet now for lots of resources if you're looking for that. Also, any questions? I've mentioned the email a few times. It's at vbseac1@gmail.com. Questions, concerns, comments. You want to tell everyone how amazing I was tonight, please do it there. Finally, I have the legal disclaimer that I read at the beginning. I've got to get that in one more time. The information provided tonight is for reference purposes only and is not intended as individual legal, medical, or psychological advice for a student or family. Families are encouraged to contact community partners directly for more information and to consult their personal, legal, and medical or psychological advisors. Virginia Beach City Public Schools does not endorse, guarantee, or warrant the services of any provider. That's it, guys. That's it. That's our evening. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.